Perfect. Thank you, Ray. Thank you all for attending tonight's meeting. Before we begin, I'd like to state that the Planning Commission meetings are open to the public in person and via Microsoft Teams streaming application. All Planning Commission meeting information can be found in the Town of Monument website. The Planning Commission's role is to conduct public hearings and to make recommendations to the Town Council regarding land use matters in the Town of Monument. Each commissioner agrees to a non-partial, objective, and fair review, which includes no prejudgment of the projects. Should a commissioner wish to disqualify him or herself for any conflicts of personal or financial interest in the matter before us tonight, please say so now. For those attending tonight who wish to provide comment on agenda items, you may speak to the commission during the public comment section of the agenda. Those who attend in person will be called upon first and are asked to come to the podium and sign in with your name and address. Those attending via Microsoft Teams will be called upon next and are asked to utilize the raise your hand option and unmute your microphone when called upon. We ask that if multiple people have the same comment, only one person speak on the same subject. Again, thank you for attending. We will now begin the meeting with roll call.
Thank you. Chair Trujillo.
Here.
Vice Chair Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Green.
Here.
Commissioner Egley.
Here.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Commissioner Hours.
Here.
And Commissioner Hatch. Here. Thank you. That concludes roll call.
Thank you, Ray. At this time, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on the agenda, approval of the minutes. We request a motion for the approval of the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes from the February 12th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Chair Trujillo.
Yes.
Vice Chair Smith.
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Egley.
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes.
Commissioner Hours.
Yes.
And Commissioner Hatch.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7 in favor, none opposed.
Thank you very much, Ray. Next item on the docket, public hearing and recommendations. We will be opening up that first case on this matter, which is, our first case is a request for approval of case number 2024 TAC 014, the Triview Promontory Point Water Tank Project. Public hearing continued from February 12, 2025. This case has been noticed for a public hearing, and I'm going to send that to staff for presentation.
Thank you very much. I want you to know that our presentation is going to be rather short. We're going to have the applicant carry on with most of the history and project details. So thank you all for being here. We're going to be going over the request for a PUD amendment, final plat, rezoning, and site plan approval for the Promontory Point Water Tank Project. Just so that everyone in the audience is aware, this meeting was noticed for a public hearing, and the applicant met all the public hearing requirements for this meeting. The applicant, NES Inc., on behalf of the Triview Metro District, is seeking approval of a major planned use development amendment, a rezoning, final plat, and site plan for the Promontory Point water tank. All applications are required for the introduction of a second water storage tank located at the existing Triview Promontory Point water tank site. Included attachments with your staff report include various aerial, location, and future land use maps, the public hearing notice, the applicant's project narrative, the Triview Utility Subdivision final plat, the drainage report for the project, the major amendment to Sanctuary Points PUD, the site plan itself, and some draft findings of fact. Links to all of those original documents are in your staff report. Just to go over the application / request again, the applicant is the Triview Metro District. The property is 16131 St. Lawrence Way. And again, all the different types of approvals apply. From here, I will pass it over to the applicant to go over the presentation. Yes, I do.
My name is Jim McGrady. I'm the district manager for the Triview Metropolitan District. Yeah, it's on. I thought I'd just kind of give it just a real brief background of what this project's all about. We have an existing 1.5 million gallon tank at this site. And as we kind of look forward and as we observe Triview growing and becoming, closer to build out, we thought that we would get ahead of the need for additional fire flow storage and water for peak demands. So we went ahead and back probably almost 2 years ago, we applied for a ARPA grant. And there was an article just in the paper the other day about ARPA funding. That was the American Rescue Plan Act. And Triview was fortunate enough to receive $1 million to offset some of the costs of this tank. Tank, as it turns out, is about a $7 million project, but we did receive $1 million for the construction. So we began the planning process, designing the tank, getting bids and so forth. So that's where we stand right now. It's basically going to be a 3-phase approach. We're going to do a lot of preliminary work right now in the next year or two. And then probably in about the next 3 to 5 years, we'll actually construct the tank on the site. So I just wanted you to be aware that this is a 3-phase project. We're going to do a lot of preliminary stuff. We're going to build a wall around the actual treatment plant. Right now, the plant is, we're not very proud of it. Let's put it that way. So we're going to try to build a nice concrete retaining wall and screen wall around it, new gates, extensive landscaping on the outside of the fenced in area. So that's basically what the project consists of. As we looked at where we could site the tank, it suddenly dawned on us that this is going to cross a property line. So that's basically what forced this entire decision, this entire discussion, was the fact that we couldn't get the tank on the lot that we actually own. So we had to go into some of the other properties to, I would say, north and east that we actually do own as well, but it's just was subdivided kind of strangely. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Andrea. She can answer any of your questions and go through her presentation. I also have our design engineer, Mario DiPasquale, and Steve Sheffield here to answer any technical questions.
Thank you, Jim, for that introduction. Next slide. I'm Andrea Barlow with NES and happy to be here tonight to present this project to you. Jim already introduced the team. Here's just a summary of who everybody is, what their role is. Next slide. So I just wanted to talk a little bit. We're presenting 4 different applications. It's a little complicated, and I'm going to go through in some detail about what each of them means and why we have to do it. So the existing Triview Utilities site, which is referred to as B Plant, is the area identified in red. It comprises 2 parcels, neither of which are platted currently. It is located just off St. Lawrence Way at the end of a cul-de-sac in the Promontory Point neighborhood. As Jim mentioned, the existing facilities include the water treatment, the water tank of 1.5 million gallons, plus a water treatment facility, a couple of Connex storage units, and parking for employees. The parcels were annexed into the town of Monument in January 2022. At that time, staff had identified a number of odd parcels throughout the town that were still within El Paso County and did a kind of blanket annexation of all of those. If you were on Planning Commission at the time, you probably remember that. So there were numerous odd little parcels that were still in the county that were wholly enclaves within the town of Monument, which were annexed in at that time, and this was one of them. At that time, the property was zoned RR5 in El Paso County. When the properties were annexed, they were zoned to P zoning, which is public utilities. So these two parcels are currently zoned P, public utilities. Next slide. So these are the 4 applications we're proposing. So there is the rezone. So we're expanding the site. I'll show this in a graphic in a second, which will explain it better. But we're expanding the site by 1.1 acres to the east. So we're rezoning that, which is currently zoned PUD, to P zone, so that the entirety of this parcel, as moving forward for the tank site, will be zoned P. We're also doing a final plat to not only plat these 2 currently unplatted parcels, but extend that lot to incorporate the new area that is being brought into the site, and also replat the tract that it's been taken out of in the adjacent Sanctuary Point development. In addition to that, we had to do a major amendment to the Sanctuary Point PUD plan, because the tract was identified as open space and utilities, and because we were reducing that slightly, we had to amend that plan and amend the open space calculations. I'm going to go through these one by one in a second, so it will make hopefully a lot more sense. And then finally, the site plan for the actual tank site. So that's where we started with this. We're doing this, we want to do the site plan for the expanded tank site. Oh, but that triggers a rezone, it triggers a plat, and it triggers the PUD amendment. Next slide. So this kind of shows it in broader context. So the site plan is going to be for the area in red. So that's the entirety of the expanded site. The existing site is just to the area to the west of the yellow line. So we're expanding to the east. I think that graphic is probably slightly out of scale because the expansion doesn't go quite that far. And then that's the area we're just rezoning the area that's within Sanctuary Point currently. And then the yellow line shows the tract that we're taking that area out of, which is going to be part of our final plat. And then that is also the area that's impacted by the PUD amendment. Next slide. So just showing this in a little different context. This is an extract from the zoning map. So you can see here how the existing Triview utility site is zoned P for public use. And that's going to be, that kind of explains what those uses are for. Obviously, a utility is one of those public uses. And to accommodate the expanded tank site, we are having to expand to the east into an area currently zoned PUD. You can see the blue is all PUD surrounding it, but they're all individually separate. So there's the Promontory PUD, there's the Sanctuary Point PUD, to the north there's the Home Place Ranch PUD. So we're changing the Sanctuary Point PUD. And the request is to rezone 1.1 acres of that, which is that red area, of Tract C of Sanctuary Point filing 8 to P. So that's what the rezone is proposing. And then ultimately that entire area will change color to that kind of yellowish color and become a P zone. Next slide. So the subdivision plat is equally complex. So the area that we're rezoning and bringing into the site plan is currently part of Tract C of Sanctuary Point filing 8. So we are having to replat that to take the portion, the 1.1 acres, to put it together with the existing utility site to create lot 1 of a new filing, which is called the Triview Utilities Subdivision. As a result of that, we have to rename and replat the former Tract C, will be Tract A of the Triview Utilities Subdivision. So that is going to be the new plat moving forward, we will create a new lot for the tank site, and then the Tract A, what was Tract C of Sanctuary Point will become Tract A of this subdivision, and that will reduce by 1.1 acres. Next slide. So the amendment to the Sanctuary Point PUD, so that was approved, that the phase 3 PUD for Sanctuary Point was approved in January 2020. Included in with that was a total of over 51 acres dedicated to Tri-View Metropolitan District for common open space, trails, utilities, drainage, and landscaping. And this tract, which on the getting even more complicated, on the PUD, it was called Tract A of phase 3. And that was identified for a range of uses, including utilities and open space. And this was the reason we postponed from the last hearing to this hearing, because it was we hadn't included this amendment when we first submitted. So this was a discovery by Dan. So you need to amend this plan. So primarily to address the open space reduction, which triggers the major amendment. So at the time we were proposing this PUD for Sanctuary Point, there was a 20% requirement for open space within PUDs. We provided a total of 44% open space, so significantly over the 20%. And by taking this 1.1 acres out of Tract A, we're reducing the total open space to 43.65%. So it's a minor, negligible reduction, I would say, in the total open space in Sanctuary Point, and still significantly over 20% that was required at that time. And I keep saying at that time because that's not a requirement in the current code. So I hope that explains the major amendment. I told you it's complicated, so I'm going through this really slowly because it is complex. Next slide. So now to the meat of what we're here to present, which is the site plan for the tank site. So those are the applications I just referenced, the rezoning, the final plat, the major amendment, are all required to facilitate this site plan. So here is the site plan. On this, you can see this is the site plan as submitted. I've got a better graphic later, but this is oriented differently. So you can see the north arrow is actually to the left of the page. To the south there is St. Lawrence Way. You can see in black the current access point. The existing tank site is there, and then the proposed tank site is just to the east of that, so in the southeast corner of the new lot. The proposal is to continue to take access off St. Lawrence Way and utilize the area in grey is a proposed new driveway to connect from the existing parking area through the site to provide access to the tank site. So that will be on a berm to create that access, and the combined area of the existing and proposed structures on the site is a little over 18,000 square feet, which is a 17% lot coverage, whereas the zoning, the P zoning, allows 35%. And with regard to the siting of the water tank, that will be more than 20 feet from the property line, and the setbacks for P zone is 25 feet all the way around. So all the existing and new structures meet the setbacks. Next slide. Same graphic, I just want to talk about some different aspects. The operations of the water treatment plant are currently 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. 7 days a week. The new tank, as I noticed, will be accessed via the existing driveway of St. Lawrence Way and that new gravel connection. So there's no proposed access from the east through Sanctuary Point, for example. It will continue to utilize that existing access. There is a fence around the property currently that will be expanded to incorporate the new tank site once it's constructed. And all the operations on the site will continue the same. So the traffic will be the same. It won't generate any more traffic. In maintenance of the tank site, both tanks will occur at the same time. And one important thing to note, I think you're probably aware of Tri-View's intention to build a new office, a headquarters. And with that, a lot of the operations will move to that new building. So really at that point, the project site will only be accessed once a day on a daily basis to perform checks of the treatment plant. So ultimately, existing traffic, even though this isn't going to generate more traffic, the existing traffic will reduce, and it's pretty minimal as it is today. Next slide. Jim mentioned the new fence that's going to be provided. So there's currently a fence. I've got there's some photographs later. There's a fence that runs along St. Lawrence Way, right on the right of way. It's not the best fence. It's a little tired, and the proposal is to move it back about 25 feet up onto the slope. It's not a massive slope. It's about 5 feet higher, but to put it at the point where it will have most benefit from a screening point of view, and then also to make it a screen wall, a 6-foot precast concrete screen wall, which would be much more attractive than the current cedar fence. So that will be an improvement. And then in front of that fence, where it will have the most benefit, will be substantial landscaped area, so about 100,000 square feet of landscaping, which, given a relatively small frontage onto St. Lawrence Way, is quite a significant amount of landscaping. So that will not only help screen the site, but also just improve the visual quality of that section of the right-of-way. Next slide. So regarding the height of the new tank, it is going to be the same height as the existing tank, so just short of 34 feet. The height limit in the zone is 35 feet, so we meet that. And one thing that will become more apparent, we did do a visual simulation, kind of view shed analysis, is the tank is going to be set into an existing slope. So it slopes quite significantly uphill on the south side. And so it's going to be set into that slope to really reduce the visual impact of the water tank. And while it will be visible from St. Lawrence Way, from the east, from Sanctuary Point side, is really going to be screened by and to the south, a combination of topography and tree cover. So, and even to the west, the existing tank will screen the proposed tank. So it's really not going to be that visible, but from many viewpoints, and where it is, it's going to kind of sit comfortably in with the environment. But we do have some visuals for that. So next slide. So this is a kind of prettier picture of what it's going to look like from an aerial perspective. So you can kind of see clearly here where the existing tank is and the water treatment building, together with the connexes and the parking, where the fence will be moved back to rather than being on that perimeter, the landscaping, and then the location of the proposed tank. And you can see how there is substantial tree cover surrounding that tank site location. The green viewpoints are the viewpoints that we're going to be looking at in the next few slides. So next slide. So this is looking at the existing view of the tank site from kind of the southwest corner. And so you can see the existing tank and adjacent trees. Next slide. And there is the proposed tank. Sorry, I said south. I meant from the north corner, looking towards the tank along the new road. And that is the proposed tank. There will be some tree removal to accommodate the proposed tank, but there is substantial tree coverage around the tank to help with screening, particularly on that south side and east side. Next slide. So here we're looking at the tank site from the northeast corner. So really from the adjacent, there's a residential home immediately to the north of the property. Kind of from that viewpoint, looking across the water treatment plant, the existing tank. Next slide. And then that shows how the new tank will be viewed from that location. Next slide. So this is from directly west on kind of the south end of the site, looking at, that's the existing fence along St. Lawrence Way and the access point and the existing tank and water treatment plant. Next slide. And this shows how that entry is going to be enhanced with the new slot wall, a new gate for the entrance. You can see the existing tank and then the new tank just in the background there. It will really be barely visible from St. Lawrence Way. Next slide. And this is an angle showing much more clearly now that existing cedar fence on the edge of the property. And then next slide. And this shows how the new slot wall will be set back slightly higher, and then the front will be landscaped and the existing tank, and you could just about see the new tank there in the background. Next slide. I just wanted to go generally through the review criteria because there are the 4 separate applications. There are a lot of different review criteria. A lot of them are quite technical. So I'm going to hit on what I can consider the main ones: comprehensive plan, compatibility, and traffic, which are the main ones that usually are concerns in a neighborhood. So with the comprehensive plan, I just want to emphasize that the existing tank site wasn't in the town at the time the comprehensive plan was adopted in 2017. So it really wasn't even contemplated. The site lies within an area which is within primarily a single family detached residential area. Obviously, utilities are a fundamental requirement to support single family detached residential. There isn't any specific land use in the comprehensive plan that talks to utilities, but in general terms, the goals of the comprehensive plan for water and sewer seek to ensure that there's adequate capacity to serve the needs of future residents of the current and future residents of the town, which is exactly what this project is seeking to do. So I'd say that the very specific land use provisions of the future land use plan don't really apply to this site, but there are goals that support the project. Next slide. And then compatibility with the surrounding area. Obviously, I've just gone in detail over the view shed analysis and location and so forth. I think the key things are we've chosen a location that has natural slope, natural screening with trees and topography. We're proposing a new screen wall, which provides not only better screening from St. Lawrence Way, but a much more attractive visual appearance to the property. And there will be substantial new landscaping associated with that. And based on the viewshed analysis, we prepared that we believe that there's really minimal impact from the new tank on the surrounding area. One interesting thing in the zoning criteria, there is a criteria that says, is the rezone needed to provide land for a demonstrated community need or service? And we believe that providing additional water storage and fire flow capacity for Tri-View District to accommodate the build out of the district is an important community need and service. And then regarding traffic impacts, as I mentioned, the existing traffic is minimal to the site. The new tank site will be accessed via the existing access point of St. Lawrence Way. It's not going to generate any new traffic, and the relocation of Tri-View's headquarters will actually reduce that existing traffic significantly. Next slide. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrea. At this point, what I'd like to do is go ahead and open up public comments. Obviously, those personnel in the room first. If there are any open public comment, please.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
can we complete our portion of the report? I know this is a
yeah.
panel that we just like to close out our portion.
Sure, that'd be great.
We'd have
Thank you,
kids
sir.
Take you to history.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that. So we'll conclude with our proposed finding of fact from staff. Number one, the proposed use meets the intent of the comprehensive plan's designation for the property. On-site circulation and access are appropriate for the private water tank site used for public benefit. Water tank design in terms of orientation, spacing, materials, exterior color, and texture. Sorry, something's in my way. Storage and lighting is compatible with the existing development. Landscaping is quality design that enhances the site and is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood as shown by amount, types, and materials used. There will be adequate off-street parking, both standard and ADA accessibility, and the contents and form of the proposed final plat conform with all technical plat requirements. Our recommended action is a motion to make a recommendation to approve the major PUD amendment to the Sanctuary Point filing PUD rezoning Lot 1 of the Triview Utility Subdivision to public zoning, the final plat to be known as the Triview Utility Subdivision, and a site plan for Lot 1 of the Triview Utility Subdivision, as supported by the attached findings of fact and described by the following documents, that being the final plat, the drainage report, the site plan, and the major PUD amendment. And that is conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. At this time, we're going to go ahead and open up public comment. If there's anyone in the room that would like to make a comment, please do so. Come on up, and then from there, put your name on the actual roster. Anyone have any open comments? No comments. Ray online up. Yes, ma'am, please. Sure. Come on up, please.
And I was just had a question. I did get a letter, my husband and I got a letter that said that I guess we would be affected. We live in the cul-de-sac below. And I was just, and looking at the plan, it looks wonderful. But my question is, why did I get a letter? Would it impact us in any way from our view from Kettle Valley Way? And you said that the water tank would be the same height as the existing water tank, and then it's going to the east. So I know there's rock formations there that we look out at. Would that water tank be a little built higher and we would see it, or is it going to be the same height as the existing water tank?
Great question.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, you got to come up to the
do I
front.
need to?
Yes, please.
Oh. There's no traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
So you're welcome to keep the pen. That's a special gift from us. Hold on to the pen. But before we go too far, I wanted to just mention, so you received notice as a requirement of our code whenever the plan commission or town council conducts a public hearing. We have to provide notice with the applicant for a certain distance around that property. It doesn't indicate that there's any specific impact on your property or anyone else's property. We just want to make sure that you're aware that there's a proceeding or approvals that are being considered by the Plan Commission and Town Council. I truly appreciate, and I could say this on behalf of Plan Commission, we appreciate you participating and coming tonight. And it just shows that those type of notices have value. So thanks for coming, and I'll turn it back over to the applicant.
Mario DiPasquale with Respec, engineer representing Triview Metro. But just to answer her question briefly, the existing tank is matching heights with the new tank. So we are not exceeding, anything beyond that. So in all likelihood, the view sheds that we showed were pretty much the only areas where we could identify where we would see or partially see the tank itself. So, and again, if you're on the west side of the tank, the new tank is on the east side of the existing tank. So it will probably not be visible at all in all likelihood. Maybe minor, if anything. So
Great. Thank you,
Yep.
sir. All right, Ray, no other questions in the room here. Any online, sir?
At this time,
Perfect. At this time, we will close public comment and open it for commissioners' questions and comments, if we have any. Commissioner Green.
Question, I think for Andrea, you said, or maybe Dan, you said that the original plat required 20% open space. After you take an acre out, you're gonna have 43 something. What is the requirement now? You talked like it was no longer 20.
I don't believe it is. There is a 20% requirement. So at the time we did the Sanctuary Point PUD, there was in the old code 20% requirement for PUDs. When the code got rewritten in about, I want to say 2019-ish, that was no longer in place. I was surprised, to be honest, because
So
I
there's
looked
no
through it multiple
requirement?
times, and
There's no requirement now?
there is an open space requirement, but there is not a percentage associated with it. So I'm not sure 20% is the right number, but either way, we substantially exceeded that in Sanctuary Point. Thank you.
Had a couple of things, excuse me. What type of security will be in place on the site once the project is completed?
Jim McGrady. Basically, what we have in as far as security goes is we have cameras. We obviously have the wall. It's going to probably be fenced in on all four sides. There's going to be a locking gate on the front. Like I say, we have cameras, we have intrusion alarms, that type of thing. If somebody tries or tries to get into one of our tanks, it's part of the reason why you design a tank in such a way that it's not easily accessed. So what we did is we moved it kind of to the, I'm going to say to the north a little bit away from that bluff, because original designs, it kind of looked like somebody that was really wanting to could leap across and maybe get on top of the tank. So we moved that out further so that could not.
Okay, thanks. Ray, can you put up the slide that's tagged visual simulation from Andrea's presentation, I think it was?
There's multiple visuals.
Oh, the
Which
one, yeah, that one right there. On the right side of the graphic, if you will, there's kind of that dirt road. I don't know if you want to classify it as a road, a path.
It's actually a pipeline easement.
Okay, I wasn't certain. Is that where the construction access will be to the project, or are you going
No,
to come
no.
up St. Lawrence Way?
That's a great question, because that was a confusion to some folks, because that is where our pipeline comes in from the Northern Delivery System into this water complex. And that road that you see there is actually the pipeline easement. We have just completed a reseeding of that whole area. So the last thing we want to do is access that site and destroy all of the seeding that we just accomplished.
So all the construction traffic
It
will travel
come
up
through
St.
off of
Lawrence
St.
Way.
Lawrence, yes.
Okay. And really the last question I had was, what type of mitigation is in place or will be in place in the event of some catastrophic failure in one of the tanks?
It has an overflow. So when a tank like that is not going to fail, but operations can cause various things to happen. For instance, a valve sticks open, you lose communication with one of your pump stations and it keeps pumping and it fills the tank up. Each one of these tanks has an overflow, and that overflow will basically discharge away from the homes into storm sewers, etc. So there won't be anything that could possibly damage any of the homes nearby.
Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
Quick question. Does this tank require, because the district over time has acquired additional land, as in, was this originally not foreseen because
It was actually, it's always been planned.
Okay.
Yeah, we've always planned a second tank here. In fact, if you look at that picture, see the three trucks right there? The building to the right has been removed. It's been demolished. But where those three trucks were was where the other tank was going to be. But when we got looking at the elevations and the heights, and the one thing you want to do is try to match the heights of your tanks. And that parking lot, if you will, we were going to have to build it up or make a taller tank or something. But that's where it was originally proposed. And we got thinking that is really an issue, or would be an issue for the surrounding neighbors. So we moved the tank to its proposed location, which is virtually impossible to see.
Great. Glad.
Commissioner Ayers. Where the three trucks are parked, I'm talking what it's going to look like all through the project. Okay. Where the three trucks are, is that where your current office works?
It was. We demolished that building probably 6 months ago.
Okay, now,
And we're moving that entire operation to our new facility that's going to be located off of Terrazzo and Baja. You'll be
Okay.
hearing about that soon.
with regard to the other building that's there,
That is the
That's-
water treatment.
okay. But there's not going to be anything in front of that water treatment plant, basically from the gate up.
That's correct.
Something, could you look?
No. And I'll tell you why. There's a whole bunch of pipes that come out through that area. I mean, it's a water treatment plant. That
Okay.
plant basically goes into that water tank, that the lighter green tank, and then all the pipes that feed the district basically go right out through that area. So
Okay,
that is a
I'll beg
spaghetti.
one more
plant.
question.
Spaghetti.
You got that one. If you look on down from where the gate is, you go northeast, west. Could you possibly consider in the long term spending some money and putting some larger trees in there so the vision of people driving up?
That is the intent.
Okay.
And what we're trying to do is kind of, right now, that whole site is predominated by
Okay, that's-
ponderosa pine. And what the ponderosa pines have a branches that are not very dense. We're looking at putting in blue spruce and planting some up on that ridge, kind of right in front of that fence, so that it does exactly what you're indicating.
I'm not sure if you can see this one.
We're no, that's one thing we're hoping to avoid. Most of that is sandstone. And even though it seems hard to us, to some of the equipment that they're using these days, it'll cut through that like butter. So we're not anticipating anything more than just scraping it with, Eco teeth and things like that. So, yeah, no, that's one thing that we were very conscious of, is not to have to blast or anything like that.
Commissioner Smith, just to clarify for the residents that came tonight, because they were concerned about the rock formation, and I'm sure I know the answer, right? But the rock formation isn't going to be disturbed at all, right?
This tank is probably at least 20 to 30 feet below that. That's
Yeah,
a really steep slope. And the rocks appear to be up on the ridge of that, and we will not be touching that.
Okay, nice. The other thing, I guess, maybe a question, it could be for you, Mr. McGrady or Andrea. The original Sanctuary Point tract C.
It just already sounded
Right.
like.
It's kind of an ownership question, because is the property changing ownership, or was it was very dedicated open space? But I think Andrea knows what I'm.
Yes, so Sanctuary Point was owned by Classic Homes, and when they did the PUD and platted it, all the tracks were dedicated to Triview Metropolitan District. So Triview Metropolitan District does in fact own that tract.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yep, just
Okay.
want clarification on that.
All right, at this point, looking for a motion to vote.
Commissioner Smith, I will make a motion to make a recommendation to approve the major PUD amendment to Sanctuary Point Final PUD, rezoning Lot 1 of the Triview Utility Subdivision to public P zoning, the final plat to be known as Triview Utility Subdivision, and a site plan for Lot 1 of the Triview Utility Subdivision as supported by the attached finding of facts.
Commissioner Egley, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Chair Trujillo,
Yes.
Vice Chair Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Egley,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hours,
Yes.
Commissioner Hatch.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Ray. Next one, we're going to go ahead and move forward. These are non-agenda public items. If we have any of those, defer to staff. Ray, any of those? Yeah. No additional.
Just
Motion to make.
Yes.
Yes.
You did.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that it's whether we dotted all our T's and
Yep.
crossed our I's.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Yes. Read per verbatim.
Correct.
Thank you.
Non-agenda public items. Ray, any? For staff.
So there's nothing. I just wanted to allow or kind of bring the floor first. Our mayor LaKind is here tonight. You know, he wanted to speak. And I also wanted to provide an opportunity for Commissioner Egley and Smith to kind of report on our activities last week. We had a busy week last week, and I've been talking about it enough. So I'd just rather toss it over to you, and I can add anything if you miss something.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, sir.
Well, thank you. It's only the second time I stood before the planning commission. So first I wanted to thank all of you for serving. I know there's some new faces that I've seen on paper when we go through the approval process to add more commissioners to the planning commission. And also thank you for both the collective effort and then the individual efforts of those of you that are participating on the comprehensive plan. And those that are on the steering committee. It's a lot of work we have all ahead of us as residents, as well as those of us who are appointed and elected to get through the next 18 months. And we have a very competent consulting firm, as well as the staff. Everybody's invested. So I really just wanted to come here and thank you for all the effort you guys are going to be putting in over the next 18 months for that.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Are we going to defer to Ray?
Go ahead, Ray. You want to go first?
No, go ahead. Sure, chat.
Sure. So Commissioner Smith, so like our planner already relayed, we had a pretty busy week last week. Their week was much busier than ours, of course, but I had the extreme pleasure of being able to afford some time to come in and do a tour with the consulting group, and that was phenomenal. Got to know those guys a little bit. Commissioner Egley and I are both participating on the steering committee. So we had a steering committee meeting that night as well. That was Tuesday night. That went really well. We have key holders and I guess in town that are participating on that. We have a representative from HBA. We have Tri-Lakes Cares. We have the chamber represented. And who am I missing? Oh, and we also have two town council members here too. I keep forgetting the council members, but yeah. Then Wednesday night was, I think, very successful. What a super exciting night over at the elementary school. We had a community discussion. So we had focus groups that they set up just impromptu there. Several different subjects where the consultants gathered information and thoughts. And basically what this first phase is trying to identify where a monument is now. Where are we now? And once we figure that out, which we will, they have a lot of great data. There's going to be surveys going around on social media and so forth. But I think around May, we should have a good idea of where we are at. Not being facetious, but we'll know where we're at. And that way we can start moving forward into the next phase, which will be actually digging a little bit deeper into the comp plan. So super good week, and kudos to the planning department. Everybody, Dan, Ray, Brooke has done a phenomenal job, and Connie's been there helping out too. So it's I know it's a lot of work, and we really appreciate it, and super excited to get this moving, and looking forward to the next 18 months. Mr. Egley?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is I respect all the other members on the planning commission and the knowledge and the thoughts that you'll bring to the process, because really this is our project before it gets to the town council to approve. But so I just encourage you to bring anything to the table so that Commissioner Smith and I can take that back as well. But don't feel like your voice shouldn't be heard, because it carries as much weight as ours or more so, based on your experience and everything else. So that's all I really wanted to add.
We had over, I can easily say that we had we had hundreds of people participate last week. This is only the beginning. The table in the back, you'll see a lot of the cards and maps that we used last week during our community conversation at Bear Creek Elementary. And the reason those are out is because this morning we had an all-staff meeting, and we actually asked staff to participate in that discussion. And we talked about all the issues that were discussed last week amongst the focus groups in the community session. And their comments and thoughts will also be included in that existing condition report that you were speaking of, Commissioner Smith. I welcome anyone there's no one listening, but anyone who hears this recording later or is in the room to visit Monument 2040 to keep an eye and understand what we're doing throughout this project. There's also a survey on there, so I'd recommend sharing that with your friends and neighbors and business owners and so on to go in and complete that survey. This project will only be as successful as the number of people and the different types of people who participate in it throughout. As I said, this is only the beginning of the engagement process. We will be taking over the farmers market and the 4th of July parade and anywhere we can be to have conversations with the community. Don't be afraid, as the Plan Commission members, you don't be afraid to join in. If you're interested in participating in one of those pop-up sessions or one of those events, just let me, Ray, Connie, or Brooke know, and we'll make sure that you could be there and be part of that. We have an incredible consultant team that's working with us, and I'd love to give you the opportunity to work with them and sound off with them as well, and let them know what your thoughts and vision is for the town of Monument. So thank you very much for last week, and let's keep pushing on.
Great. Thank you, sir. Next meeting date obviously will be April 9th at 6 o'clock here in the auditorium here. Requesting an adjourn or motion to adjourn at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn the Planning Commission.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Perfect. Meeting adjourned at this time. Current time is 18:53.